Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Thursday night preview. I'm not Scorpus, as you probably found out. Scorpus can't join us tonight, so I'm heading up the whole shebang. And joining me is PJ Crows. How you going, PJ?
Good, fan yourself?
Yeah, pretty good, mate. Good to have you on board. And Macca23's popped in for a bit of a chat as well. How you going, Macca?
Very good, mate. Looking forward to it.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, because we have a Thursday night fixture this week, we only have the teams for the Crows and the Hawks game, so we won't be talking about the other games other than a bit of a cursory chat, because obviously we don't have any selections. But let's get right into it. And it's a pretty big match, I reckon, for the Crows coming off the bye. It's always a bit of a toss-up, I reckon, when teams are coming back off a bye to see how they're going to pull up. And the Hawks have got pretty good form, certainly recently, and certainly at the Adelaide Oval against us. So we'll need to come out firing. Obviously, we're playing at the Adelaide Oval at 7:20 local time, which is, for our Eastern States viewers, listeners, 7:50. And only the one change for the Crows, guys. We've got Luke Brown in and Riley Knight out. PJ, what do you reckon about that?
Yeah, probably, I guess, erring on the side of caution with McGovern, but as we know, we typically do that. If you think back to Walker in round one, Lever throughout the year, they've been pretty conservative with selections, so I'm not entirely surprised. And through the language of the club throughout the week, probably not really surprised to not see him back, but I'm pretty keen to see him get back in there.
Yeah, likewise. What do you reckon, Macca?
I think PJ summed that up pretty well, really. I don't think it's a real surprise that he's not in there. He may well have been in other teams, but our club's been very conservative bringing players back. I suppose that the more controversy is about who's been omitted and who could have been omitted, etc. I've got my thoughts about that, but I'm sure we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, I mean, Riley Knight is, from my own personal viewpoint, always a little bit slow off the blocks when he's coming back into the team. It generally needs a week or two to really hit his straps, and I felt like he was a touch unlucky. We've carried a couple of players with similarly low outputs. You could even talk about Charlie Cameron. Rory Atkins, despite his good second half, has had a down month, but probably saved his spot with his second half. Andy Otten seems to have been squeezed into the side. We've got Brodie Smith on the bench this week, and yeah, I don't know. I don't know whether I would have gone with Riley Knight, to be honest.
Well, what do you think, PJ?
I think, more interestingly, is probably the positioning on the field that they named. So you got Beach in a forward pocket and Otten at halfback, which probably points to them thinking that it would be Beach that goes out when McGovern returns, and they're using Otten as a swingman. Not quite sure about that. I think I'd love to have John O'Beach in the team, providing he performs, obviously, for the rest of the year. I think he'd be a good player towards the end, but I think with him in a pocket means that he's straight out for McGovern next week unless he does something pretty amazing.
Well, let's just quickly go through the lines, and we'll start with the defence. We've got a fullback line of Laird, Hartigan and Talia, halfback line of Brown, Lever and Otten. Obviously, the named sides are a bit of a furphy these days, and we've also got Jake Kelly and Brodie Smith on the bench, so we look a little slow, I reckon, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, but surely we're not going to line up that way. Jake Kelly will go take his halfback flank, and I can't see Andy Otten playing on that flank at all. As PJ said, he'll be a swing man. He may be used even in the game to prop up an area if it's struggling a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I really like when Andy Otten's brought to the team this year, but I think my view is that he's just a really good, honest backup, and with Lever and Kelly going well, I'm not sure whether having him across halfback actually hurts us from a rebound perspective, whether they're looking to rotate Lever, Otten and Kelly through a couple of different positions. But yeah, I don't know.
I don't think he'll line up there.
No, but he's gonna play there though, because where else is he going to play?
Well, it could be a rotational situation in the forward line.
Well, he could rotate with Beach, I guess, but I don't like Andy up forward either when we've got Tex and Jenkins in the team. What do you reckon, PJ?
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Andy Otten's just kind of hanging on, I think. They like versatility. So I think Otten, I mean, he's versatile. He can play in the ruck too if he has to. I think they just kind of, until Gov gets back in, I think they're just biding their time with their perfect structure. I think Sloaney named on a half forward flanks is interesting.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about our mids, and we've got Atkins, Douglas, and Charlie across the midfield. Obviously, with Sauce in the ruck and the two Crouch boys ruck roving, and then as you mentioned, we've got Sloaney named on a half forward flank, Charlie named on a wing, obviously, but he'll run through the midfield rotations, I'd imagine at times. Actually, it looks for once as if we don't have quite enough depth in rotation through there. Maybe Miller. Oh, we got Greenwood on the bench as well.
Yeah, look, I just don't believe that the way the side is named is the way that they'll line up. I can't buy it for one moment because Jake Kelly will play on his halfback flank, and because unless they're going to use him as a tagger on what's his name, Mitchell, but I don't know whether he has ever been used as a tagger before, or whether he's even got the engine to do it. Because he is a very close checking type player, and the coach did say that he's thinking of using a tagger this week.
Yep. Yeah, I don't mind the idea of Kelly as a tagger. What do you reckon, PJ?
I'd love Luke Brown to be a tagger, designated tagger for the rest of the season.
Yep, I like that too, and I think it actually fits well with our structures. It allows Kelly to take his position across the half-back line with Lever. And, I do like Luke Brown. I think he did all right when he eventually got switched on to a tagging role against the Cats there. I don't mind that either, mate.
He also had a bit of a crack at a tag against Brisbane.
Yeah.
He did pretty well.
No, he did good.
Sorry, Macca. Our midfield's doesn't have enough depth in it, in my opinion, when the heat is on. So at least if we need to be able to at least tag one of the opposition's mids every game.
Yeah, I was just going to endorse what you said. I thought he did a sort of tagging role, not a really tight one, but a reasonable run with role, and I thought he did a reasonably good job.
Yeah, I'd hate to be sacrificing a Greenwood or someone like that on a tagging role, and I think. The only other bloke in our midfield rotations that could possibly do it is Douglas, simply because of his engine. But I like Luke Brown in that role, and it'll be interesting to see because we finally had a slight concession from Pikey during the week that perhaps we might consider if someone twists our arm a tagging role. So it'll be interesting to see what they do in that regard, particularly if Mitchell starts getting off the chain a bit in terms of possessions. Although the knock on Mitchell is simply that it doesn't hurt you enough with those possessions. So... we'll wait and see, I guess. Forward half, as named, we've got Sloaney, Josh, Jenkins, Tommy Lynch, Beach, Walker and Betts. Pretty standard, although we've got Sloaney lining up as named, but I doubt he'll start there. I reckon we might see Richie Douglas start on the half-forward line. Again, the one thing that we lack, I reckon, is a bit of defensive pressure in our forward 50.
Yeah, I think that's one of the I guess tougher things of putting Charlie up onto the wing is that we do lose that from the forward line.
Yep, and not having Mitch McGovern in the side either. Although Jono Beach is quite good defensively, But you're not going to get too many defensive efforts out of Jenkins, Walker and Tommy Lynch. And Eddie's been a little bit down in that regard over the last month or so. So yeah, I mean, you got to take them with a grain of salt, these name selections, but we just don't seem quite balanced to me at this stage. It seems like, and it all, for me, it all comes back down to Otten's selection. I just don't like it.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. I think this might well be Andy's last game in the senior 22 for the year. Not necessarily for the year. There could be injuries, but given the full squad available, McGovern comes in, and obviously he goes out next week. And but he does tend to unbalance. Well, he's a very good substitute when somebody's out injured. But I think including him when we've got the guys that he normally covers in, and that's Lever and Jenkins, I wouldn't have Otten in the team then, because that's what I think his real value is.
Yep, agree.
Yeah, I reckon too. And I don't think it's a good bloke selection, but I think it's a reward selection. And I think everyone agrees that Otten's a backup to those blokes across half back, and the fact that he's done such a good job. Although I have to say, in the last probably 3 or 4 weeks, he hasn't been great apart from that game in the wet against Freo. So I don't know. You might be right, Macca. It might be his last week. I don't see him in our best 22, it frustrates me once again because once again Adelaide has played the least amount of players of anyone this season, and I know that coach is all about cohesion and continuity, but by God, we've got some blokes in the twos that could do with a run.
One thing we sort of can't really afford to do this year either is our draw is relatively tough coming home. So after the next 2 weeks, every team we play is going to be fighting for a position in the 8. Whereas last year it was the reverse. We didn't take advantage of that last year, and this year we may not be able to.
Yeah, exactly right. I would have thought perhaps this was the week, and I noticed that Harry Wigg has been named as one of the emergencies, which surprises me. I've got to say, the fact that D-Mac's been named as an emergency just gives me a bit of a shiver that perhaps, the selection panel still see him as part of our best 22. Let's not forget that David, over the 2 times that he's been dropped, has only had 1 game in the SANFL and didn't exactly set the world on fire. And I also think it might have been an opportunity this week for Riley O'Brien to have a run.
Yeah, I think you're right about McKay. I think the fact that he is still named an emergency and so someone like Knight isn't probably points to the fact that he may get back into the team. And I think they will. I think they will give O'Brien a run at some point. Sort of hard to see when now, though.
Yeah, I don't know. This is necessarily the game for O'Brien. Ben McAvoy's been in career best form, I think, this year. Certainly in recent weeks, he has been.
He's only just a ruckman, Macca.
Look, you know that, I know that, but he doesn't seem to know it at the moment. He's been playing very well the last few weeks, and I've never had a great opinion of him. But watching their games, I've been surprised. He's actually taking a lot of marks around the ground and even up forward. So I just don't think this is quite the game for him to bring him in for. But I do agree. When we get the right game, then I think he should at least get one match at least.
All right, let's have a quick look at the Hawthorn team, obviously. And one of the things that sticks out to me is that they've got some really good ins this week. They've got Birchall, Hodge, Bruce, and Sean Makers in. For Brendan Whitecross omitted, Cade Stewart omitted, Josh Gibson out with a groin, and Josh Cousins omitted. So they have definitely, despite Gibson's loss, they have definitely strengthened their team, PJ.
I think they have. They've strengthened their team. Hodge definitely isn't the player that he used to be. Neither is Birchall. I think just looking at our forward 6 though, against their defence is pretty raw and pretty green. We should rip them apart there, and really we should.
Yeah, that's the one area I'm looking at myself. When you look at as it's written on paper, and you look at our forward line against their defence, it is the one area that screams dominance for the Crows. The rest of the around the ground maybe not, but that one particular area really stands out.
Yeah, it is. I mean, Ryan Burton and Caden Brown holding down the key spots is obviously going to be a big test for them. Going to be very interested to see how JJ goes against Ryan Burton, because Ryan Burton has got a lot of talent, but they don't seem terribly strong on the flanks with their mids and small backs. I think it's a prime opportunity for our second string forwards to really get off the chain. Beach, Betts and Lynch. And really, even if you look at their midfield setup, you've got McAvoy, Burgoyne and Bruce as your three rucks, and then you've got Smith, Mitchell and Liam Shields across the midfield. It's not one of those teams that really strikes fear into the heart. Even though you Will Langford on the bench, it gives them a little bit, but they haven't got a huge amount on the bench. Poppy and Hartung and Sean Makers, who you'd expect might end up taking one of those key posts.
Yeah, I think we're a little bit stiff in the sense that we have got three of their senior players coming back in, and that will, even though I don't think it will make the difference between winning and defeat, I think will strengthen them and make them a much more competitive outfit than they would have been without those three players. I mean, Bruce is always a very, very dangerous player up forward. And if he gets off the chain, and he only needs 5 shots to get 5 goals. He's
He's kicked 14 goals in the last 4 games against the Crows, Macca. He's always been the thorn in our side, Luke Bruce.
Yeah, well, that's why he stands out to me as the danger man up forward. Hodge is a warrior, and even if he's not at his best, which he isn't, but he's still battle scarred. You can knock him around, but he still gives 100%, and he's a magnificent example to his teammates in terms of courage and effort. And Birchall, well, if you get the ball into his hand, he's a beautiful kid.
I think we need to jump out early and sort of physically bully them a little bit. Every time we've played them, even in round 2 this year, they did it at the start. We run over the top of them, but we need to get out early and get over the top of them early. I think Clarkson will have them up and ready. So we just got to, just maintain it for 4 quarters.
You've been talking to Eddie then, PJ, because Eddie was saying exactly the same thing, that's the Hawks' normal manner, is to sort of bully the players, and he wants us to do the bullying back.
Well, it's interesting that you moved on to that, because that was going to be my next little talking point, is the type of game that we're going to see, and where Hawthorn are going to test us, I think, is in that unsociable football that they're so renowned for. They still like to take control of the ball and play a high percentage game. They still are very efficient by foot, so if you give them any sort of space at all to spread and distribute the ball, they'll do so effectively. And what they like to do is get you off the contest with some hard stuff early on. And given our warranted/unwarranted reputation of late of being a tad shy of the hard stuff, it's going to be a bit of a test. But I would be very surprised if Hawthorn didn't come out physically.
Definitely warranted, Phoenix. Those claims. We don't like the hard stuff. It's just a fact.
I felt like we came out a little bit harder against St Kilda in that first quarter, but it's not hard to do that when you've had a rev up after a few weeks of negative media. They need to be able to do it week in, week out.
Yeah, but I think it's a bit harsh to say we don't like the hard stuff, in the sense that we're not cowards and we're not weak, but it's hasn't been a real feature of our game. That would be fair to say that. And we've basically been, essentially, most of our players are ball players, but there's some out there that don't mind handing out a bit of physicality.
No, disagree wholeheartedly, Macca. Wholeheartedly. The games that we've lost this year have been lost inside the contest, and it's not just about throwing fists around or whatever. It's about actually maintaining your positioning and maintaining a straight line at the ball when it's your turn to go. And in those 2 areas, we've been lacking in when the heat is on.
Yeah, look, I know what you're talking about, and I know that there's certain games where that has shown up. But we wouldn't be, you couldn't call us a weak side and be number one in contested ball as well.
No, well, that's, true enough, but there's contested ball and then there's contested ball. And
no, it's not really contested ball. It's the non-ball contested situation where, the pushing and shoving and the bullying and the intimidation side of it more you're really talking about.
Well, no, I'm not actually. I'm talking about our ability to stay in the contest when the other team are applying physical pressure, whether that be fairly or unfairly or on the ball or off the ball. When things get tough, and the Melbourne game is a prime example, when things get tough, we tend to get a little bit shy at the contest.
We did in that game, I can't argue with it, and we got blasted off the park against North Melbourne. We got blasted off the park against Sydney in the final last year. But having said that, there are a lot of other games played apart from those three, and I'm sure the same type of tactics have been put on us, or similar type tactics, and we've stood up to it. It's a question, I think, of our attitude right from the word go, whether we're ready for that sort of thing, whether we're ready to blast back.
I don't know, PJ, what do you reckon?
Basically, teams that go 4 quarters hard against us, we don't win. So we can go, we play our way for 4 quarters. If that happens, we win. If a team goes hard against us for 4 quarters, we won't win. Whereas a lot of teams can grind out a win. We aren't really a grinding out type of team. We just aren't.
Yeah.
Just not how we are.
I agree 100%. Every if you break it down to quarters, every quarter that we've been physically challenged, and that includes Brisbane, and includes Richmond, the quarters where that we were physically challenged, we ended up behind at the end of that quarter. And as you rightly point out, PJ, the teams that have been able to sustain that for 4 quarters beat us. Richmond and Brisbane, for example, weren't able to sustain that. We were able to get the ball on the outside and play the game on our terms. But it's how finals are won, and this is going to be, I think, an opportunity for us again to step up to the plate in a fairly hard and physical match, and improve that area of our game. And for everyone's sake, and certainly for the Crows' sake, let's hope that we see that level of improvement.
Well, it is an area that they do have to improve in, and I'm not arguing about that. I'm just saying, I think you guys are painting a picture of us being a fairly weak side, and I can't see us as being weak.
Macca, I want to replay to you comments that you've made throughout the season on the Rap Show and on Tuesday Night Show.
Yeah.
Because I reckon you're full of shit on this one.
No, I just think I'm not totally disagreeing, but I just think you go a little bit too far with your comments. In a sense, we're not a weak team. We have been blasted off the park, and so has nearly every other team in the competition.
We're not a piss poor soft team,
no.
But we're not a hard team. A team isn't 9-3 if they're really soft and poor. We just don't really like the hard stuff. And when it comes at the end of the year, I still question whether we're really anywhere near that. But we kick big scores. That's our advantage.
Yeah, exactly. It comes back down to personnel. If you look at our list, we don't have a Levi Greenwood or a bloody Ben Cunnington or a Jack Zeeble or a Nathan Jones or Jack Viney. We don't have those type of players. Our inside players aren't those sort of players. The 2 Crouch boys aren't monsters. Rory Sloane's not a monster. Richard Douglas is not a monster. And then our outside runners are definitely not monsters. The only bloke that seems to revel in the hard stuff is the rookie. And thankfully he's been able to come in and slot in quite nicely, and maybe a little bit of a joker up the sleeve with half a dozen games under his belt come finals time. But we don't have that sort of a team. So the challenge for those blokes is to be able to hold their own, because they don't have to win contested possession by 20. They just have to break even on contested possession. And that's, I guess, where I'm a little bit concerned about our current half-back line, because generally what happens when we do only break even or get slightly touched up in the middle, we're able to counter that with some really good rebound off half-back. And that's where I'd like to see us have a little bit more speed. across half back to be able to take advantage of our outside play on the turnover. And at the moment, I just don't see that we have the right structure across half back.
But just on that particular line, you're not suggesting there's going to be rough stuff from Henderson and Gunston, are you?
No. I'm talking about speed off half back, Macca.
No, I'm being a bit facetious about those two players.
Yeah, I'll ban you from the preview. This is a serious show, mate. Serious. None of this Tuesday Night Live banter from you on a Thursday night, even if it is Wednesday night.
Yeah, whatever that was. But who do you think is lacking in the pace? Otten's not going to line up there.
Well, Jake Kelly's not fast. Jake Lever's not fast. Luke Brown's not fast. Daniel Talia's not fast. Kyle Hardigan's not fast. Rory Laird's not fast.
But they're not bloody turtles either. I mean,
no, they're not turtles, but they're not fast. And if we load up, whether you have Andy Otten in the back line or Jake Kelly in that back line, a half-back line of Luke Brown, Jake Lever and Andy Otten, as named, or Luke Brown, Daniel Talia, Jake Lever, or Jake Kelly, Daniel Talia, Jake Lever, whatever combination you want to throw at it, is not a quick half-back line.
No,
I think Brodie Smith on the bench has maybe thrown it a little bit. It just doesn't look right. But I think Smith will clearly start on the ground.
And you're probably right, but even then, we've seen what happens with teams with the quote unquote blueprint. They sit on Brodie because he's really our only quick outlet from the back half, and we need someone else across half back. And again, you wonder why maybe a Harrison Wigg hasn't been chucked in there in the absence of a Curtly Hampton or a someone else of that ilk. Waiting for Paul Seedsman to hopefully find some fitness and form and break his way back in there. But at the moment, my point is, I guess, Macca, is that in the past, when we've been held in the midfield and struggled to win or break even in the contested ball stakes, we've generally been able to counter that with some really good rebound off half back.
Correct.
And at the moment, the halfback line doesn't fill me with a lot of confidence if we do get held in the midfield.
Well, I think the one thing that's really sticking out and affecting your vision on that is Andy Otten sitting there on that halfback flank, because that's the one position you wouldn't want to see him play, because then everything you just said would come to pass. But I think PJ's right that when you put Smith there, put Jake Kelly there, and you got a different sort of lineup and a little bit more speed. Jake Kelly's not that slow.
Jake Kelly doesn't do anything but chip the ball sideways or 20 metres forward. He is not an aggressive mover of the ball, Macca. You know that. He's a dowered, close-checking defender. He's not an offensive weapon.
I wouldn't say he is. I'm not suggesting that. But
so what is he bringing from a rebound perspective?
But he's also, in my opinion, in the last few weeks, he has been starting to run off his man a little bit with the ball when he's got it, rather than just being a stationary, kick and mark player or a tackling player. I reckon he's a young player learning the game that's getting better every time he goes round.
PJ, what do you reckon? Help me out here.
I just think that I think you're right, Phoenix, but I think you're assuming that Hawthorn have an all-field game. This particular Hawthorn team has an all-field game to be able to tag a Smith and tag a Sloan and play their way and all that. And it's for this particular game, I don't think they have that. It's a different story against a better team.
I would almost put $100 on Luke Hodge going to Brodie Smith. $100 of Macca's money I'd put on it.
Well, you would never get mine.
You might be right. It's a matter of whether their whole field can actually do it against us.
That's what I think PJ summed it well, because you are assuming some form of dominance by Hawthorn around the ground for that to happen.
No. I'm just talking about our team balance. I'm not talking about how the game's going to pan out. I'm talking about team balance.
Well, back to you, PJ. I want a comment on, do you think we have a slow backline?
Well, it's not quick. It moves the ball well. That's been our advantage, is that moved the ball well when we've been playing well. We're not necessarily quick by foot.
Where is our defence rated in terms of the overall teams?
In what stat, Macca?
Well, just overall, like the champion data ratings.
Yeah, but what stat? Points lost, points conceded, or rebound 50s, or
once you
nuts, or
yeah, if you want that in there. But once they've taken in every factor, they do an overall rating of the defences.
Well, if you've got $50,000, I'll go and buy a license to Champion Data, and I'll get you the answer because they don't give out that information.
It does get published. I think we're rated. We're certainly in the top 4 or something like that for defences.
The rating that they give out is basically points conceded. It's got nothing to do with rebound.
Okay, you may well be right, but I mean, it's still. I don't know.
You've just come on here to be argumentative tonight.
No. I don't visualise all these nasty things in the defence that you're seeing.
What, you think we're quick out of the back lines?
You don't always have to be speedsters. You just have to be good.
Do you think we're quick out the back line?
We've had certain players who come out at a reasonable pace.
Who are those people again?
Well, Smith does, Lever does,
yeah.
Hartigan does.
Yeah.
And then we've got
I've never, ever seen Hartigan run with a ball, Macca. Not ever once.
I know, that's unfair. He has occasionally, but for God's sake, I mean, you always wonder what the hell he's going to do with it once he's got it. But no, he's Hartigan's one of the quickest players in the team.
Adelaide rank 11th for rebound 50s in the competition. 35. The leading team is Brisbane with Essendon, with 41.8. So we're only middle of the road in terms of our rebounding efficiency.
Yeah, but it's a little bit. It's not just rebounding; it's the whole game. You got to stop the bloody thing in the first place.
All right, we're just going around in circles now. Anyway, let's move on. Our final thoughts for the game, Macca. What's your prediction for the outcome?
Well, I'm pretty optimistic about it in the sense that I think that we are a better team than Hawthorn, and the ladder position suggests that. The results of the game suggest that. But every game's a new game, and they've got a bit of experience coming back into their side. Having said that, I would predict a margin around about the 6 goals plus, and depending on whether some of the dyers I think you're predicting come into play or not. But it could get higher if we get really on top. But I'll say 6 plus.
What do you reckon, PJ?
Yeah, I'm similar on the margin. I reckon about 39 points. I think we'll win. I think Clarko will come with a plan, and I think it'll be a pretty dour sort of scrappy-ish game. I think the weather will be pretty good for footy, but I don't think we'll blow them off the park. But then again, the last time I was on here, I tipped Fremantle to beat us, so we pumped them by 100. So who listens to me?
You're very close then.
I'm not as optimistic as you guys. Adelaide Oval holds no fear to Hawthorn, nor does playing top 8 teams, because Hawthorn are one of the few teams that have actually touched up a couple of top 8 teams, plus a building Sydney as well. 2 of the Hawks' 4 wins this season have been against top 8 teams, Melbourne and West Coast, plus Sydney as well. So when they come to play, they can still do some damage. They're the second highest ranked team in disposal efficiency, compared to Adelaide 14th. So if we allow them to get the ball on the outside and zone off them, as we sometimes do, then they've still got the ability to cut us up. They've still got some quality up forward. They've still got a couple of good small forwards, and they've got a couple of good ball carriers in Smith and Birchall. So I'm tipping a 3-goal margin our way in a pretty dour sort of a match.
Yeah, my only one reservation is, and you did say something very relevant.
No backsies.
I'm not backing. I was actually going to give you a bit of praise for a very good for a summary on who Hawthorn have beaten there, and I did watch that Sydney game, and that if they played like that against us, I would be a little bit alarmed.
Well, if they can do it once, they can do it again, and I'd imagine that our midfield doesn't hold anywhere near as many fears to Hawthorn as what Sydney's do. And Sydney, don't forget, it wasn't the Sydney of the first couple of rounds. It was a recent Sydney with a bit of good form going on. So, yeah, I don't know. I'll be quite happy if we win by more than 4 goals. I don't think we will. Now, we need to move on to Game of Crows. For Macca, you probably don't even know what Game of Crows is, do you?
Not really.
No. So Game of Crows is, and I don't have the theme music, sorry Scorpus, I'll let you down there. Game of Crows is our weekly competition where we pick out a particular stat and our listeners need to vote on who they think will be the leading getter in that particular stat. And for the life of me, I can't remember all the ones that Scorpus has done in the past. So if we have a double up this week on one that we've done before, I don't really care. We're going to go for uncontested possessions this week. So we're looking for the player from the Adelaide Crows team who will pick up the most uncontested possessions. So don't forget, you can vote on Twitter. You can vote on the on the Crowcast thread on Big Footy. Get your votes in, and I don't even have a leaderboard at the moment because Scorpus is all over that, so we'll post something up on Twitter and on Big Footy. I'll get Scorpus to do that sometime over the weekend. So uncontested possessions this week. Who do you guys reckon might just get up for us in that stat?
I'll go Rory Laird.
Rory Laird?
Atkins.
Let me just give you a bit of a... if I can bring it up quickly. See who's currently leading our uncontested possession numbers. Just bear with, just talk amongst yourselves while we're doing that.
How are you today, PJ? Feeling well, mate?
Come on, talk about foot. Uncontested possessions, our current leader is... Drum roll. Hurry up, internet. Rory Laird is averaging 21.9 to nearly 22 on your 12 games. Matty Crouch, Rory Atkins, Brodie Smith, Brad Crouch, Tom Lynch. Just to give people an idea of who usually racks up the numbers in that stat. So make sure you can get them in on Twitter or Big Footy or even Facebook. Twitter and Facebook at AFL Crowcast or obviously on our thread on Big Footy. So let's quickly just run through the other games for the weekend. Just a quick comment and a selection from both of you. We have on Friday night at the SCG, we've got the Swans versus Essendon. No teams, obviously. Thoughts, Macca?
Yeah, Swans, I think they'll dice Essendon up, I think.
What do you reckon, PJ?
This will be a cracker. I reckon Sydney just. Two completely different teams in the way they play. I reckon the Swans will win. And I reckon they're marching towards the finals and will be a contender.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep. A bit of a hiccup along the way, but I reckon you're right. I reckon they'll drop into the bottom half of the 8 and do some damage. Collingwood versus Port Adelaide at the MCG on Saturday afternoon.
I don't know whether I'm tipping with my heart or my head here, but I'm tipping Collingwood.
PJ, what do you reckon?
Where are Collingwood currently placed? Above 12th?
Yeah, I believe so. I think they're 11th.
Collingwood.
Yep. I think Port will get up, but I don't think they'll have it their own way. Collingwood aren't too bad, but I just don't think they've got enough firepower.
Mighty midfield, though.
Yeah, great midfield. Yep, if they get on top there, it's about conversion for Collingwood.
Correct.
Saturday afternoon, late, we've got the Lions up against the Giants at the Gabba.
Giants
Giants by a lot, even though they've got a lot of injuries. Saturday later in the afternoon, we've got the Weagles versus Melbourne. This is going to be a really interesting game at Domain Stadium.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, all right, because the Eagles play a certain style of football, and probably almost go as far as saying Melbourne are probably the hardest football team physically at the moment in the competition. They are a hard team. I'm going for the Eagles because they're playing on their own home ground, but gee, no shock if Melbourne won it.
I think West Coast over there. I think Nathan Jones is a really, really big out for them, for Melbourne.
Yeah, that is true. That is a good point, PJ.
Possible they get Hogan back though this week, so that might give them a little bit more firepower up forward. But I agree with you, PJ. I reckon Jones out just unbalances them a little bit in the middle. West Coast for mine there. Saturday evening, we got the Bulldogs versus North Melbourne, and given the Bulldogs' current form, it turns into a very interesting game at Etihad Stadium.
Gee, this one is so hard to pick because the Bulldogs aren't playing very good footy at all, and yet North Melbourne don't win many. So I think I'll still go for the Bulldogs to scraping.
Bulldogs 10 goals to 9, boring.
Yeah, I'm with you. I reckon it'll be I think the Bulldogs will get up. There's been a little bit of scuttlebutt around certain things around their club this week that they've come out. They've, had blokes getting into Johannesson over Twitter, and then there was that string of rumour with Johannesson as well. So maybe the Bulldogs work best under a bit of siege mentality, so I reckon they might come out firing, and I reckon they might actually touch up North Melbourne. Skilled Stadium on Sunday. God, how does Geelong keep playing at bloody Skilled Stadium? The Cats over Freo.
I think no brainer. I think Geelong
will win pretty easily. They're playing another interstate team at Skilled Stadium.
Yeah. Although Freo's got one of the better records at Skilled. It's still terrible, but it's not as terrible as just about everyone else, except Sydney maybe. Later on Sunday afternoon, we've got Richmond v Carlton in another interesting game at the MCG. I reckon that'll be a cracker, actually.
Yeah, it'll be a very good game to watch too, I think. Richmond will definitely be leading in the last quarter. Whether they make it to the line, I think they will on this occasion.
I think Richmond will win with their coach of the year, Damien Hardwick.
I actually think Carlton will get up in this one. Playing some reasonably good footy at the moment, Carlton. And Richmond are only just going. When you actually look at Richmond's side, there's holes everywhere, and Martin's carrying a bit of a back injury, although they say he's over it. I don't think he is. So they're not getting the same amount of output out of him over the last couple of weeks as they might like, I reckon, Carlton in a tight one. And the last one, Sunday evening, St Kilda versus the Gold Coast at Etihad.
Yeah, another good game. I just think the Gold Coast have played pretty good at the moment. I'll go for the Gold Coast for an upset.
Poor.
St Kilda will smash them in front of about 7 people.
Yeah. Friends and family. I agree with you, PJ. I reckon St Kilda will touch them up. Although it is Gary's 300th, isn't it? This week. That might fire him up a little bit. And speaking of milestone games, congratulations to Brad Crouch in our game playing his 50th. And Ricky Henderson playing his 100th game becomes one of quite a few players that have actually played games for both Hawthorn and Adelaide. It was about 8 of them, I reckon. And he plays his 100th this week. And whilst he's sometimes maligned, anyone who can get 100 AFL games under their belt's doing all right, I reckon.
Yeah, he's not the hardest, most physical player in the pack, but as you said, it takes a lot to get to 100 games.
Yep. Well, that about wraps us up, I reckon, guys. Thanks very much. It was a lively discussion and a good one. And don't forget, we'll have the main break show at halftime of the game tomorrow night. So join me then for a bit of a quick snapshot of how the game's going. And of course, don't forget you can also join me on the chat tomorrow evening during the main break as well to have your say. And then we're back with Macca and Nikki on Sunday evening at 7 o'clock for the wrap show, where we talk about a massive Crows win Macca tells me how stupid I was for doubting us, and we talk about the other games for the week as well. Thanks very much for filling in this week, guys. Much appreciated, PJ.
No worries, always good fun, Fane.
Yeah, our number one chatter. And thanks, Macca, for popping in as well.
No, pleasure. I'm sorry if I stuffed up your normal sedate format.
No, not at all. Not at all. All right, we'll leave it there. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you tomorrow night.
Okay, bye.